Hello and welcome to the Ultrawizard Ramble podcast. I'm your host, Patrick Reagan, and this is episode number 9. Today on the cast, we've got Nicole Monette, who's a coaching partner of mine in the Ultrawizard Ramble, or Patrick Reagan Running LLC, and her client and our friend, Lauren Jones. Lauren this summer competed at her first Western States 100. I was fortunate enough to be there and get a chance to see her execute a really great race, and she followed it up with an excellent performance this fall at the No Business 100. Today, we're going to discuss Nicole and Lauren's coaching and athlete relationship. I hope you enjoy the cast. Lauren, Nicole, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Yeah, it's great to see you both today. Me and Lauren will probably dealing with slightly warmer temperatures. Nicole's up in Michigan, and the fall and wintertime weather is starting to hit, right?
Yeah, it's actually sunny here today though, so it's kind of a beautiful day, but beautiful in Michigan means it's in the 40s today, which is pretty nice for this time of year. So,
Yeah, Lauren, what's everything been like for you since unpackaging No Business and getting into the fall weather? Has trail running in Atlanta been great? What's your postseason been looking like?
Yeah, I'm just kind of getting back into regular running, sort of. Nothing super big yet, but the weather's been pretty nice until this weekend. It's just rainy and cold. But it's been pretty nice. It was actually 80 degrees all last week, and I was
wow.
wishing it was more fall weather. So hopefully we'll get
Yeah.
there soon.
Yeah, preaching to the choir down here in Savannah too. I
Yeah.
get it, right? Like always wishing it was a little bit more like fall or winter. So, well, first and foremost, I'm happy to have you both on. As I said in the intro, Nicole is a coaching partner of mine in our coaching collective, the Ultra Wizard Ramble, or Patrick Reagan Running LLC. We've been working together for years as athlete coach, but today is all about unpackaging your coach athlete relationship. Nicole, you and Lauren have been working together, I guess, for a couple of years now. And this year has been, star-studded. Like I feel like as an East Coast runner, Lauren, me and Jason Green and friends have just been super proud of the year you've put together, and the two of you have worked really well cohesively. I got to witness a little bit of that unfold this summer at the Western States Endurance Run, and I just can't wait to hear more about your build from Western States all the way into No Business and the success you've had this year. So first and foremost, Lauren, give us a little bit of background on you as a runner and how you got into this sport and what keeps you in it.
I've been, see, like running wise, I've been running since I guess the early 2012 kind of range of life. So like 10 years maybe. I started off, I think like most people on roads doing like half marathons and stuff. Kind of quickly progressed through half marathons. I did a road marathon, and just thought like it wasn't that crazy difficult, which is silly to say. Um, but I just wanted to see if I could go longer. And so I just kind of Googled longer races, having no idea that the trail world existed. And then
Oh,
I
I love
stumbled
that.
onto like, yeah, I had no idea it was a thing. I definitely didn't know ultra marathons existed. Um, and I just wandered into like a local 50K, having absolutely no idea what I was doing. And I just kind of got hooked on the community and the culture. It was just so different than the road running vibe. Um, I just really enjoyed it. And then they had real food at aid stations instead of just gels and Gatorade.
Yeah.
So
So tell us about that. What year? What year did you do your first 50K?
that was 2015.
Okay, so pretty rapid progression to the 100-mile distance and discipline then.
My first 100 was 2017 at the Tahoe Rim Trail. So I stuck around the 50K, 50-mile mark for a couple years and then accidentally signed up for the lottery for Tahoe Rim Trail. Totally forgot about it. And then got an email on New Year's Day that I'd gotten into a 100-mile race.
Ah, so cool. Okay, so a little bit of background on Nicole. Nicole Monette and I have known each other since college when you were still Nicole Blazer. We both went for your graduate degree for my undergraduate Slippery Rock University of PA. Tell us a little bit more about yourself, Nicole.
Yeah, I guess currently, I'm a mom of three young kids. I have two boys. They're 9 and 7 now, and one little girl who's 4. Um, Like you said, I went to Slippery Rock for PT. My day job is a physical therapist in an outpatient orthopedic setting, and I've been doing that now for, geez, 13 years, I guess, all mostly outpatient orthopedics and sports medicine. I've been running since high school, into college, and then kind of similar to Lauren, did the road scene for a while, pretty competitively for a few years, and then I took a little break to have kids and that kind of thing, and then I don't know, I kind of stumbled into trying an ultra just to try something new. I think I was in 2017 was my first ultra. It was a 50K. Um, and then I ran a 50 mile at JFK in 2018, I want to say. And then I took another little break and had my third baby. And then I don't know, about a year after having Madeline, I decided I wanted to try a 100 mile. And I think that's when we reconnected, Pat. I decided to reach out to you. I had heard a bunch of podcasts and things that you had been on, and obviously knew you from college, and I knew you were doing some coaching, and I just wanted to get some help because I had never done much over like the 50K distance, just 150 mile basically. And so that's kind of how it all kicked off. So I guess, yeah, that's a summary of who I am. And then I coach with you, of course, and that's been really fun to get into the last couple years as well.
Yeah, it's been super fun. We've been on this awesome ride together, and it's been cool to see your coaching grow, which is kind of where Lauren comes in. I guess one of your first coaching clients through the coaching services was Lauren, and it has worked out pretty well, I would say. So let's unpackage it. I mean, what is a regular week just in like athlete coach relationship look like for you two? And tell us a little bit more about what your build this year was like for, because the focus was really Western States 100. Like I can remember the text from Lauren, yo, I got in, and Nicole and me kind of looking at the lottery for athletes we worked with, like who was going to get in this year, and it was pretty exciting. We had three athletes run this season. So tell me a little bit more about what that was like. Okay, I know I'm in Western States. I know I've got some unfinished business. Funny enough, at no business. What was what did the year look like in terms of crafting that season, and what was the plan? Because any season with multiple 100-mile races is always a little tricky.
Well, I guess, when Lauren got into with the lottery last December, she wasn't currently running at all. The history of that, of course, is breaking her ankle. What was it, Lauren? 40 miles into no business last year.
Yeah, right about
And
40. Yeah.
yeah, right about 40. And, having a pretty traumatic injury that required, some time with non-weight bearing, and it required significant time off. And so when she got into Western, it just so happened like she wasn't really training at all at that time. And so then it was like, okay, we have like 6 months to, get healthy, build back up, and be ready for what for many is, a dream to get in. It's hard to get into Western. So,
Sure.
um, from my perspective, it was like, okay, like we have 6 months and it's going to be challenging, but Lauren's really tough. And I knew like if anyone could do it, she could. I don't know what you were thinking at the time, Lauren, but
Yeah, I was totally surprised to get in. Of course, I've been trying to get in for, I think it was 7 years this year. But because my leg was
Ton of years.
broken, yeah, a lot of years. My leg was broken. It had just been so long, and I just kind of assumed I wasn't going to get in for another year. So to get the news, I wasn't even paying attention to the lottery, but of course my phone kind of blew up, and all my friends were excited that we were all going to Western States. Um, so it was really exciting on one hand, but then also really disappointing in a way, because it was, the worst possible year to get in, where I wasn't able to even walk. At least in my
Yeah.
mind, I was like, of course, this is the year. Um, so it was a little motivating, but also a little terrifying to consider going from not walking to running 100 miles in just a few short months. Yeah, it was a little scary, but it was nice to know that you definitely thought it was possible, and to know that it wasn't a crazy idea was really helpful.
yeah, and
And
I
it
think,
also kind of, yeah, go ahead.
no, sorry. I think from my perspective, my first thought like was, yeah, you can definitely do it. but we have to be sure that we don't ramp up too quickly, like coming off an injury like that. It's always like the injury risk I feel is a little higher. Um, so I didn't want to get over
Absolutely.
aggressive. And I remember us having a conversation there around that time where it's like, okay, like let's start being a little bit more intentional with the prescription of cross training. Because, we took a break just for a couple months just to let your body and mind kind of heal because you couldn't do much. And, that was the appropriate thing to do at the time. And then I think it was, January, February, let's really start ramping up the cross training a little bit, get the body totally ready to get back. You were doing PT of your own, and kind of bouncing ideas off me there. And then as a coach, I was just like, okay, this is a big job. I want her to have the best experience she can have. But really, I don't want her to get injured, like, trying to get there. Um, so I think that was definitely really important leading in, but also knowing like we still had 6, 7 months. So we had a lot of time and you had a lot of strength behind you just from all the miles you'd put in, previously leading in. So,
Well, from my perspective, and I was fortunate that we were working in this like cohesive way that I was getting to kind of give course by course directions, like, along the way with Lauren to say, what are the important parts of mile 1 through 30 in this race, the important parts of Robinson Flat to the base of Devil's Thumb, etc. So I got to see your confidence build, and I could tell that that was one thing you and Nicole were working a lot on, was as you continued the process through winter into spring, into the closer and closer we got to the race, you're like, I'm pretty fit. And I think the two of you had timed it right. um, Tell me a little bit about the final stages of, once you saw, I guess, that like Lauren was looking healthy and that you could really build. What were some of the key things that you focused on in the build to Western States? For listeners that are maybe preparing for their first one this coming year, lottery season's coming right up. This podcast will release right around, the launch of a lottery season. What are some of the important things to be doing in, say, like the final 12 weeks before Western States? Once you felt like, okay, I'm starting to get fit again, I'm definitely healthy, I'm definitely going to complete Western States. What were the things that you two really focused on? Was it more holistic training in terms of spending time with friends on trail? Was it a certain amount of elevation gain and loss? Was it downhill running?
from my perspective, it was a little bit of all those things. I think for Western states, especially the back 60 miles of the course or so after you get through that first 50K, it is fast and runnable. So I always prioritize fitness. I mean, I think that's if you're fit, that's going to bode well for you. Lauren does a lot of training on the weekends on trails. So she gets that aspect of things. It's not like she's doing all road running or anything. So focus on building that fitness. We did do some like treadmill runs with like continuous climbing and things like that at effort. Um, and then, some hill strides and things like that to really kind of harden the body a bit from my perspective. And then some heat, that was part of it too. Um, I don't know what you felt there, Lauren.
Yeah, no, I think there's a pretty good focus on fitness, and I did feel fit going in, and certainly a lot more fit than I thought I could get to, considering where I started. Um, I always enjoy that you're like a patient coach, and I can be like, hey, by the way, I'm gonna go run 50 miles with my friends this weekend down in Florida, which is
Love
totally
it.
not my plan. So it's fun to, I got to do some of that kind of stuff too, which just kind of brings the joy into running and keeps it really fun and keeps your mind happy, which is really important to race well. Um,
Absolutely.
yeah, it was a good combo of just being excited to get to run and staying happy and then staying fit and doing some more course specific kind of fitness um, to be ready for what it had.
Yeah. Yeah, I think definitely keeping in some of that. Like you have a nice community there in Georgia, of friends, and you guys like to go do some adventure stuff, and that's always like number one to me, to be honest. Like I never would say no to something like that. We can always work it out, Um, because keeping the joy in it, enjoying the process is definitely, I think the most important thing, because if you're not enjoying it, why bother doing it? Um, and so I think we definitely had a nice mix of that. And then, some tough days of like 4 by 10 minutes uphill on the treadmill at effort that might not have been as joyful in the minute, but kind of get you that, ready for some of the climbs and then descents and things like that. So yeah, I think it was a focus on
Yeah.
both.
Quite tricky on the East Coast in general, even when you're in the North Georgia mountains, to be preparing for a race like Western States. So it's really fun as an East Coaster to unpackage with others. Like, okay, like how do we really get ready for sustained climbs, right? In Appalachia, on the East Coast, in Northern Georgia, we definitely have a lot of punchy climbs, but how do we get ready for extended climbs and extended descents? And I think that's a big part of where our programming in general comes into play, right? With weight vest strength training, loading the quads, with a decent bit of time on trail, but also with some of that ancillary preparation, right? Like the 4 by 10 minutes uphill, the 4 by 15 minutes uphill at different efforts, whether it's 50K to marathon. And it sounds like you had all those tools in your tool belt from Nicole's prescription. So, I think one of the most important things as an athlete too is that flexibility, like for adventure, right? Like I know we had about 25 miles on the plan this weekend, but I really just need a weekend away and I need time with friends on trail. And it's funny that I think those can be some of the most important parts of the build, where we're getting in adventure while working on durability, especially when it comes to some really long sessions, like you put yourself through in the spring. Were there any key races along the way that you two kind of targeted at different intervals throughout the training to say this was kind of a proof in the pudding sort of experience, and I felt like I gained a lot of confidence from this race? Or was this season really, were you playing the long game more for one performance at Western States, focusing more on the season as like that is the A race and we don't really need to do a lot of other racing other than that?
Yeah, we talked about maybe putting a race in there, but we kept it pretty. I didn't actually do any races, so my very first race back was Western States. But I think I just really wanted to stay focused on the goal, keep the training steady, not have to do like taper and recover and all that stuff, and just really focus on building really well. Which was a little scary to just jump into Western States as the first one back, but
Yeah, for sure.
so it was fun to look forward to.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like we did talk about that a bit, and then just with, you know, you working, having that schedule, and then, some of the little trips you did, like the Florida trip where you did do like 50 miles in hot, humid conditions. We just decided like let's just focus on the training and staying healthy and not worrying too much about racing. I do think there could be benefit in, doing some local races as like a nice supported long run, basically. But this time it just kind of, I feel like it didn't really work out into the build. And so there's pluses and minuses with that for sure. But you definitely had some nice long adventures on the weekends that I think kind of served that purpose of you trusting your body again. From my perspective, that was part of the journey too, is just
Yeah.
like after any major injury, I feel like it's just getting out there and knowing like I can be on trail. I'm not going to get injured again. My body's not going to give out on me. And I think week after week, as you were able to kind of build up and feel strong again, you gained confidence from that. So that was really important. And I think we've discussed kind of the mental side of ultra running, and you and I even have discussed recently how important that is in, you know, kind of
Yeah.
prioritizing that.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's if not the most important, definitely the second most important beyond fitness.
Hmm.
But I definitely struggled with trusting myself and with just fear of getting back out there.
Yeah.
Um, so that was a big part for me. But yeah, getting to go do some adventures where I didn't have the pressure of trying to race, because I have a hard time turning off the competitive side of me. So getting to do a long effort, but without the pressure was really nice.
Yeah.
In building back that confidence, which is still a work in progress. I'm still not quite there, but I'm a lot better than I was.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
oftentimes the key, right? Is settling into, well, I'm excited about this race, but I don't have so much performance anxiety in general. I've been in and I think it's a little easier when you're in a competitive setting on a regular basis. But this is a really interesting build that you had where you didn't step on a starting line between injury and arguably one of the more important, 100-mile experiences in North America, right? Getting a chance, really in the world, like getting a chance to line up for Western States is a real treat. So not racing in between, like, you two would have had to work on, mental grit and toughness. And
Hmm.
I'm excited to unpackage the day a little bit too. Tell us about your first experience there. I mean, I got to watch it all unfold, and it was more just like I was just kind of sitting on the picket fence over there, like watching you, put together a great day. I got to see you a few stages along the way. Tell us about your experience in the high country through Michigan Bluff. I mean, that's kind of the early sections and where things start to shift and change in the race as well.
Yeah. That was the early stages till Michigan Bluff was, I had a rough day. I was very, very excited, like in tears. I was like so happy at the start line. Like couldn't control my emotions. I was just couldn't believe I was here. Couldn't believe like you look around, there's Courtney, there's everybody you ever dreamt of. You're at the start line that you've seen on videos and pictures forever. And I was just very emotional and very excited to get going. And then we started, and then the escarpment looks steep, and then you start it, and it gets significantly steeper. um, it is a tough way to start a race for sure. And then it was just covered in snow, probably like a mile and a half, 2 miles up, so like halfway.
Yeah, for sure.
Super snowy, which for being from the southeast is just not something I have any experience with. And it was more icy than snow, and so it was just very slippery. So not necessarily having the confidence in myself yet, and then experiencing that pretty early on, just had me so nervous. And then I finally made it up the escarpment, was in the high country and all that, and it was just totally covered in snow. And I fell probably 30 times at least,
Oh
which
wow.
was a
Yeah.
major fear of mine, having had such a traumatic experience prior. So it just took a lot of mental strength to get through that section, let alone just the physical part of trying to make it through ice and snow, like having to figure out it's easier to sit on your butt and slide down some stuff than to try to stay upright on your feet, and just navigating up there was really tough. You look around and everyone's like falling and sliding everywhere all around you. It was just kind of chaos up there. Um, so luckily it was
This is so
early.
similar to my experience in 2019, like just
Really.
watching. Yeah, yeah, definitely. Once you got up top, I mean, you had a lot more slush, but our run for the first 10 miles up through Lions Ridge and even through Red Star was quite similar to this, where there were a lot more falls than expected and it was much slower going.
Yeah, it was a lot slower going than I had hoped for. I knew there was going to be snow. We didn't know how much or what that would look like. So just kind of figuring out what that looked like in the moment. I just tried to stay really positive and knew that it would finish at some point. It was just really exhausting.
Yeah.
Um, and it
And
was
that's
just a lot
something you
slower.
can't really prepare for, like coming from
Yeah.
Georgia. I mean, it's
No.
like, it's one of those things as a coach, you're looking like, okay, can you you can compare, I'm sorry, prepare for the ups, the downs, the fitness, the heat. You can prepare for so many things, but like I run in snow quite often here in Michigan. I don't love it, but I'm probably better prepared for it just because I do it all the time, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you
Sure,
knew like
sure.
going in, like, well, it is what it is. It probably added a little bit of nervousness with your ankle too, just, you know, the unstable ground and everything. But,
For sure. Yeah.
yeah, we were happy you got through it, even if it was
Yeah.
really rough. Yeah.
I was really happy to get through it, but yeah, it made me super nervous with my ankle, just not
Hmm.
knowing how it would hold up, if I would just have another traumatic fall that was, just super random the original time. So I was kind of like a basket case of emotions by the time I got to Robinson Flat and saw my crew for the first time at 30 miles in. Um, it was beyond, like, just the snow getting up to that point, was tough. There's just so much more climbing that I think I like realized in my head. All you always hear, like, it's flat or it's like downhill. It's a fast course, which we talked in depth about it all. but sometimes maybe I didn't really process all of it that well, or it just seemed like a lot worse in the moment. But it just seemed really hard up to there. So it was a really hard 50K coming in there. So I was just kind of a mess, and I was crying, and I was still really excited that I was at Western States, and I, came up to the aid station and recognized it from all the live coverage and everything, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm at Robinson Flat," and I was like very excited to be there, but also just kind of miserable at the same time. Um, so I
It
made
feels
a
it
quick,
feels great to get there, but it's
yeah,
definitely one of the sections of the race where you just have this heavy variable of emotion, like among the field of runners, right? Like where you can come in there feeling so good, and 25 miles later you're feeling so bad. Versus the other side of the coin, where you come in feeling like, okay, I managed that section well, and that was probably the most technical section of the course. So now I'm in a
yeah.
great state, and I was quite patient early on.
Yeah, it was a really good milestone to get to for me. You were also, we had been as high as we were going to be, and I was definitely feeling some effects of the altitude. It was just making me feel kind of tired. And so I knew from then we had a really long descent, and I was like, it's great. I plan to change shoes there. I was going to put my new shoes on. I was going to descend for a while, get out of the altitude, get to some more runnable stuff. And I knew then the snow was gone. So there's a lot of things I was looking forward to. So it was a really good milestone, even though it was emotional. It was really nice to leave there and be on to the next section. So I knew I had like a nice long downhill before we started the canyon. So I was just trying to like really enjoy that runnable part for a bit.
Yeah.
So tell us about what your experience was like going through the canyons there, heading through Michigan Bluff and kind of the general whirlwind the heat of the day brings up after being in such cold conditions all day. But then, seeing your crew there, popping into Volcano Canyon and out of it, and getting your pacer. That and that's kind of, I guess, the mark in the course that, at least for me, like getting to mile 60 or picking someone up at mile 60, you see like their emotions like head in the right direction, the direction you want to for your runner or for yourself, because you get the support of your pacer.
Yeah, for sure. Um, so going into the canyons, I knew it was going to be really tough, and I think I like mentally prepared for that section a lot better than I had the first 30 miles. And so I knew it was going to be really tough. I didn't know exactly how steep and how tough those climbs were going to be, in real life. Um, and they're steep and they're long. Um, it's impressive how long a climb like that can stay that steep. We just don't have those extended climbs like that here. We have steepness, but they're not nearly that long.
Right.
Um, so that was eye-opening, but I really tried to stay as positive as I could. It was starting to get really hot. Of course, not as hot as other years, so I tried to remind myself of that. Um, yeah, just try to stay positive and know that this is like you're knocking one out. So I did the first climb, and I was like, okay, that one's like the worst one. So we got that done. Cool. I like let myself stop at the aid station for like a minute or two and eat a popsicle that they gave me, which was really like a nice little reset. I still wasn't in a great mental place, but I was trying to convince myself to get out of it. And then I kept going. I knew I had one more really big climb, and so I was just ready to get down to the bottom so I could start that climb up. And it felt like it took forever to get down there, which was so silly. And it started weighing on me for whatever reason. Um, just trying to click things off on the checklist, and it just felt like it was taking a lot longer to get those things clicked off than I wanted it to. And then that last climb was just very exposed with the burn scar. And coming into Michigan Bluff,
Oh
I had,
yeah, definitely.
yeah, it was pretty gnarly looking with everything burned and just the amount of exposure you had. Um, and yeah, I was just in a pretty rough place by the time I got up there.
Well, the nice thing about that section of the course in previous years, and in most years, has been you get about, I don't know, 7 more miles of shade than what the burn scar, the Mosquito Ridge fire left this year. So one thing I noticed around that time of the day, having been there before, was this is a lot hotter because there's less coverage than years prior. So you all were dealing with the heat a lot more than I'd seen runners deal with in the past.
Yeah, I was just thankful it wasn't that we had a relatively cool year. I can't imagine what that's like in really hot years. So I was thankful for that. Um, I was in a bad mental place by the time I got to Michigan Bluff. I got up to the top and was coming into the aid station, and I passed Heather Jackson, who was like limping into the aid station. And so that was shocking to me because in my mind, I'm doing all this math of like, I'm so far behind. There's no way I can even finish under 24 hours. Like, I don't see a way out of this under like 26 or 27 hours. I'm so far behind any goal I possibly had in my mind. So that was kind of what got me so low. And I was tearful again. I was just like one big ball of tears, I think, for the first 45 miles or whatever. But of course, I saw my crew and I saw you there. And I let myself sit for it again one more time. And Pat, it was like you came over to talk to me, and I just remember complaining about this is so hard. um, and you just kind of looked at me and said, "Well, yeah, of course it's hard."
Yeah, of course. You're in the middle of one of the more challenging 100-mile races in the world in a
Yeah,
lot of ways.
yeah,
Of course it's hard. What'd you expect? It's not
yeah,
an easy 100.
yeah. And that's exactly what you said. And I just remember, like in that moment, I was like, "Yeah, you idiot! This is, of course, it's hard. It's supposed to be hard." And
Yeah, yeah, man.
I was like, "Oh, duh." And I don't know what about that. Just like I needed you to say that. I needed someone to tell me that or remind me that. And then I was like, okay, I think I'm fine. Let's just go. And
Awesome.
be
Yeah.
between there and when I got to Forest Hill, I was like an
I was
entirely
trying to
new
channel
person.
Nicole, like she'd be like,
Yeah,
yeah, of course it's hard. Come on, Lauren, let's go.
Well, I think
you
like
dummy.
Lauren and I have even talked about that, like as a something that she's learned and I've learned too along the way is like, yeah, like it sounds dumb, but like you forget to remind yourself before it starts, like it's going to be hard. Like the chances of this all just
Absolutely.
flowing easily, like it's not going to happen. You're trying to run 100 miles. I think sometimes like people talk if you watch videos and you hear podcasts about courses like Western States and even Javelina and it's like you hear how, quote runnable they are. And so somehow in your mind people tend to like equate that to mean easier, which is just like
Sure.
silly and not true. Both courses are really challenging and in some ways I would argue the runnable courses maybe are even more challenging.
I would agree.
And and so I think we learn that, Lauren, like, yeah, we have to prepare our minds before, like, it's going to be hard. It might be hard earlier than you want it to be hard, and just kind of to be mentally prepared for that. And then it's like, okay, yeah, that's why I'm here. Like, if this was easy, probably wouldn't be doing it. So,
Right.
Well, that's the funny thing too. It's like
yeah.
some of the worst patches I've ever had in hundreds have been from right around mile 30. There's something about it where, and Nicole has seen me going through one of them, where mile 30 to mile 60 sometimes are this fight. If the race isn't going well, if it's picture perfect, you probably don't have that fight. But there are moments in hundreds that you, in retrospect, are really proud of that really seem to be going wrong in very early stages within the race. And I think it's a matter of how we weather that storm, right? And this comes down to your, mental athlete coach relationship here. It's like if you don't prepare for that and you don't talk about it, and you don't talk about how hard this is going to be, you think this is just your party. And in a way, it's like I like to describe race day for most runners I work with as, well, this is your party. It's time to celebrate. But that doesn't mean it's not going to be hard, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
And it doesn't always keep getting worse. That's the thing. Sometimes I think you get into
Yeah,
that stage like, wow, like I'm tired and I still, it's only a 50K into this thing. Like it's just going to keep getting exponentially worse. And, we've all known, we've all been there where you don't feel great at mile 40, but by mile 80, somehow you feel better than you did at mile 40. Um,
sure, sure.
and so it was fun from my perspective. I wish I could have been there, but from following along the tracker and communicating with Pat throughout the day, just to watch you um, kind of turn around your day a little bit and just kind of pick people off through the field in the second half was, I don't know, really inspiring to me and just exciting, of course, as a friend and a coach, exciting to watch. And so, yeah,
Oh, thanks.
I think, yeah.
Well, this is kind of where things start to become a little encouraging, right? You're popping out of Volcano Canyon, okay, I can palpate when I'm going to get my pacer. It's within 5 miles now, right? The hotter part of the day is passing. You're popping into Forest Hill. You've got a pacer now, and this is a huge. I know this lifted you up, especially your spirits and emotionally. Picking up your pacer and heading to the river, you're definitely in the top 25 at this point. Unpackage what that started to feel like, heading into the river and then out of the river and towards the track. I mean, we were falling on the tracker for as late as Nicole could stay up, and I was up most of the night, obviously.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
what was that like? It always feels good to be picking runners off late in the race.
It did. By the time I got to Forest Hill and arrived to my crew, and then knowing I had a pacer, and my friend Holly was my pacer, who's like the most bubbly, like lively little person that I know. And so I was in a completely different mental space on my own. By the time I got there, I was smiling. I think I could visibly see Tim relax when he saw me smiling when I came in. I think he was so relieved that I was doing better. Um, I was just really happy to be past all the stuff that I had done. And I think just letting myself realize, like, yes, it is hard and that's okay. Somehow you forget that. But then that little reminder was really helpful. And I was like, yeah, this is hard, but I do hard stuff and that's okay. So let's go. So I was really fired up and ready to run hard from there. And then the fact that the course is so runnable from there was really helpful and just like well timed with my mental state. So yeah, we left. We were cruising through some miles early, um, all the way through, was it Bath Road or whatever, all those aid stations and stuff, the Cal Street stuff. Um, just trying to pick people off. We ended up passing like a whole bunch of guys. I don't know how many. And every time we got up there, as it got darker, you'd just see headlights that you start chasing. And so as we got
Yeah.
up there, I'd be like, oh, here's another one that's past that. And Holly would be like, let's go really fast here. And then every time it was a guy. And so I was like, well, where are the girls? How come I'm not passing one single girl, And so then we finally passed a girl as we were coming down into the river. And that just got me so excited. Beyond just getting to the river and that huge milestone of what the race is, having passed a girl just as we got there was really fun. And so we
Yeah.
made a game of trying to get down there. It's like we just blew through the aid station, tried to get down there and get a boat across before she got there. I was like, if we can get in the boat and then she's not in our boat, that gives us like a little bit of a head
Yeah.
up
Yeah.
on
Yeah. Yeah.
the,
For
you
sure.
know. But then just sitting in the boat, like we just giggle laughed the whole like 45 seconds that you're in there. It was like the most fun moment of the race for me was in the boat going across Rocky
Oh,
Chucky. I
so
couldn't
rad.
believe
Yeah.
that we were there. It was just like a very surreal moment to be in this like iconic place, and it was really exciting. And I was just really excited to run those last 20 miles. Um,
Because this is
so the
probably your most runnable section. That's very similar to East Coast running. Yeah.
Yeah,
Compared to
yeah,
other parts of the course, right?
yeah, for sure. And then on the way up to Green Gate from there, my other pacer, Rebecca, met us about halfway down because you can have multiple people in that section. So the three of us
Right.
got to run the last like mile or so up there together, which was really fun. And that's like our little trio that we do all our run ventures together. So it was like a special little time. Um, and just I knew I was picking up Rebecca as a pacer, then we were swapping, and she's like serious business, and I knew she was gonna like make me work and get there, and do like the best I could, which is exactly what she did. So we left with a mission, and we were not going to let the girl that we had just passed pass us, and we were going to go hunt down some other ones. And she was just such a great motivator, and I was really positive and happy the whole rest of the race, which was really nice. Finally passing through, I always forget the name of the aid station with Hal and Scott Jurek that are down there. Um,
I
I
can't remember if
forget.
that's ALT or yeah. Those two always mix me up, but it's
Yeah,
always
me
Hal and
too.
Scott, right? In
Yeah.
recent years. Yeah.
Yeah, and I kind of forgot that they do that, and we got there, and I had these two faces, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's Hal, and that's Scott." I was like, "This is so cool." They're like, "Do you need anything?" I was like, "No, but hi, and thanks for being here," And so that was fun, and I was like, "Oh, this is where you're supposed to make sure you turn left." It's just really fun to be
Oh
in all these
yeah, for
places where
sure.
you just hear about forever, and so we were really having a good time by then. Just like was so happy, and we started to slowly pick off a few more people. They were all boys again. And then as we got to Pointed Rocks, we caught up to actually right before we got there, we were leapfrogging with the girls several times. So I would pass her, and then she would pass me. Like I would pass her on every climb. She would pass me on the downhills and go back and forth. And then I finally passed her for the last time as we came into Pointed Rocks. And then I also passed a girl as we got into the aid station. So like they were announcing the names as you got there. She had no idea we were
That's so
behind her.
cool.
So they announced her name and they immediately announced my name. And then that was like her cue that there was somebody even behind her. And we just blew through the aid station, didn't stop for anything. And she was stopping. And then she looked at her patient. She's like, we gotta go. And so they took off. So I knew she was chasing us. And in that section between Pointed Rocks and the bridge, No Hands Bridge, we passed like three other girls.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah, that's a super competitive race at that stage.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so it was like we were bombing down, and the whole time it was like, don't fall and break your ankle, don't fall and break your ankle, but also go really fast. And so we
Because
passed
those
like three more.
sections feel a little bit washed out, right? They're
They were,
yeah.
yeah, they were really rocky and washed out. And then she was pushing me to go a little faster than I would have probably done on my own. But it's great. We passed another girl as we got to the bridge, and so I just remember Rebecca turned around and she told me, I think we have 3 miles to go at that point, and she was like, "Eat two gels because we're gonna go really hard up this hill." I was like,
That's
"Okay."
awesome.
So we just kept powering, and there was a headlight behind us. I didn't know, you don't know who it is, but you definitely feel chased, and so I guess being chased just really pushes you. But yeah, we powered up the last climb to Roby Point, and I just told her to text because the crew was going to meet us at Roby and all run in together. And I was like, you should probably just tell them that we're not stopping and we're like racing our way in. So like tell them to uh, go ahead, meet us further down. So she's like voice to texting them while we're trying to run, and yeah, we finally got to Roby Point, and I couldn't believe again like I made it to this iconic place.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But then we looked back and I didn't see a headlight, and so I felt like pretty safe that last little mile going in. But it was, and then I met my crew like the last quarter mile down, and all got to run in together. And just like looking, I kept looking back and asking them, "Is there someone behind us?" I just felt like totally chased the whole way. But then to finally make it that turn to the track, and then they weren't behind me. Um,
That's awesome.
it felt really good.
You ended up 18th place. Is that right this year?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it was cool to see you fight through, low points throughout the day and have such a awesome epic finish there.
It definitely felt good to come back from such a low place, and then to feel good and to feel strong at the end. I think is a lot to do with being mentally a lot happier, but then also coupled with just being fit going into it. I still had legs to run and chase and be chased at the end, which felt really
Yeah.
good. It was a fun way to finish the run.
Yeah, I remember I was on my run, I think, in the morning when you were finishing, and I was like, I don't normally stop on my runs, but I was like stopping on my run and like checking my phone and updating the progress. And then I saw like when you finished top 20, and it was just such a, I don't know, it was just such a high for me too, just so happy for you, just kind of your whole journey, like knowing what you went through to get there. It was just really exciting, and yeah, I was just really happy for you. So that was pretty cool.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Nicole, when you're working with an athlete coming off of an experience like Lauren had at Western State, and in Western States there was a lot to celebrate about the experience, and you're probably really hungry for the next great run you're going to have, Lauren. How do you temper the expectations? What do the 4 weeks after states look like in order to take care of your body and recover enough to feel like you can get started for the next build? Because the story of this year, at least, was you strung Western States into no business, right? Two hundreds, very different from each other. What was your approach like, Nicole, for the few weeks after the race?
Well, I mean, I think I've learned this from you, um, is, I'm big on, you see some people running a couple days after 100, and I just don't really believe in that. I think you went on a trip, Lauren, with Tim, like a
Yep.
road trip, right? And
Yep.
so it was like a really cool trip, but it was just kind of like, okay, on this trip, just chill out, walk for recovery, active recovery, hike, that kind of thing. But um, I think taking the first couple of weeks after a big effort like that super easy with plenty of time off is important. And then just like really slowly building back up from there, just making sure all systems are a go. Physically, emotionally, it takes a toll in all those aspects. So I think it was good timing with you going on that trip and just being able to enjoy it and not have to worry about like structured training for a little bit. And then, once you had recovered, just we knew that you had a redemption mission for no business. And so, there was enough time between the two to kind of have a good rest for, the first month after and then kind of start to build back towards no business.
So, are we talking about 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks of lower key training, a little bit less structured?
I think
I
that's
think
what it
that
was,
first
wasn't it,
week,
Lauren? Yeah.
yeah, about like that. That first week, like you said, we went on a trip back out to California,
Hmm.
in a camper van, and I don't think I did any miles that week,
Yeah.
and then just slowly built back up over the next 3 weeks after that. It was a good month
Hmm.
of not much structure at all, which was
Yeah,
really nice for my mental state.
I kind of like a week or two of almost no running, at least a week of no running, and then the second week, real easy running, and then a week or two of like building the miles back up without much structure for in terms of like workouts or speed or anything like that. And then once you're feeling good after all that, then it's like, okay, then you can kind of start back with some of that structure and start building back in the long runs and things like that. But I think it's good to let the body kind of absorb the stimulus and just make sure that you're not overtaxing both like your musculoskeletal system and also like the endocrine system. Um, Needs a little time to recover, I think. So, yeah. And
Yeah, I
then you
think
can
that's a
be
big part
excited for
in
the next
general.
goal. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big part in general of our philosophy as coaches, right? To let the body heal up. Both having backgrounds in exercise science and physiology, I think the most important thing is to rest on the front end so that we can have a clean origin starting point. First and foremost for the musculoskeletal system, but also like the mind needs time to heal, right? Not only does the musculoskeletal and the endocrine system need time to heal, but the mind needs time to heal from really epic racing in from hours 18 to 22, right? Because
Yeah,
that's kind of the situation you're in, right? You want to have a little bit more downtime and give your mind time to get ready for the next one.
yeah,
So if that takes us to, say, the beginning of August, we had about what, 12 weeks for no business in terms of preparation?
yeah. And then I threw a wrench in it by going to Europe that first week of August and running around the in the Alps. So not very structured training, probably way too many miles, but again, very patient coach. That was nice.
Yeah, we're kind of like, yeah, I had this opportunity, of course, you're gonna take it. A lot of fun, you know. And then it was just like, yeah, once you get back, we'll get serious about, you know, really dialing it in for no business, and that's exactly what we did. And then you had that, you were refreshed and you were ready to go. And I think you knew that you wanted to have a different type of day at no business from a mental standpoint, just because rest and sleep, like you just talked about, it was hard mentally for you, especially the first half. And so I think you really dialed that in too with the screen half, where you went into no business in a better mental place, even though like you really wanted it. I know you really wanted that win, but you had the right attitude and it seemed to really pay off. And had a better overall, maybe, I don't know if I want to say experience, but mental experience.
It was significantly better, yeah. I think having that month break with no structure, going on some really cool trips, just really helped. I I did not have a great mental experience at Western, and I regretted having that experience at such a big iconic race. But I didn't want to have that same experience at No Business. I knew I really wanted it, and I knew in order to get what I wanted, I couldn't have that kind of day. And so I just really wanted to focus on that. But I think having that time off was really, really helpful, mostly from a mental standpoint.
Awesome. Quick rundown of your day at No Business. You had a great day out there. I got to at least review some of the data, a lot of the pictures, and just see that you got your win there. Huge congratulations! And I feel like this year in general has been a really great experience for you. You know, being a top 20 finisher at Western States, getting a win at No Business, seeing your coach do really well this last month at heavily in 100 being top five. You know, getting another top kind of 5, 10 golden ticket finish, golden ticket race finish for Nicole. I feel like the two of you are on the rails, and it's great to just see both of you back and healthy compared to where you were at the tail end of last year. I know that can be really tough for an athlete, to go through low physical patches where their body, gives you signals, hey, I'm literally broken, and we need to let our bodies heal up. So I think if we can look at anything on the year for the two of you, it's that you're in a much better state than you were a year ago physically, and who knows what's in the future for us in terms of racing. So
Yeah, for sure. It looks a lot different than this time last year, for sure.
yeah,
Um, Thank you. Thanks for getting me through this crazy, crazy year. It definitely feels good to have it pay off. Oh, thanks. Sometimes it comes and goes. um, yeah. It does so much, and that was such a big part of why No Business went so well, I think. I was able to stay really happy really the whole day. I didn't have much of a low point. Part of it was I ran like the first 30 miles with my friend Holly, not on purpose. I knew she was racing, and we weren't planning to run together, but we just run very similarly and just ended up within like shouting distance of each other for the first 30 miles. And so it was actually kind of like having a friend, like a pacer out there early on.
that's
And
awesome.
kind of like you said, Pat, like early on, like 30 miles is often where I get a little bit of a mental low, because you're tired. It's been a long day, but you still have a really
Yeah,
long way to go. It's hard not to be in those thoughts. Um, so it left me a lot happier in those early miles than I thought it would. And then we started to separate. But by like the 35-mile, 40-mile aid stations, I was in first place, which I didn't expect to be there that early. I thought it would take a while longer for me to chase there's some fast girls out there. Like one of the girls ran like a sub 3 hour marathon just recently. Some of the girls just have some speed on them that I don't have. So I thought they would all take off really early, which some of them did. But I was able to take over earlier than I thought, which was a little stressful, but also it felt kind of good because it is really hard to let people go and
yeah,
let them go
for
out
sure.
front. So it felt good to reel them in, and to be up there. And I was just, once I got to that place, I was just so happy to be running in the place that I wanted to be. And I just kept telling myself, like, this might be your only chance in your life to get to run up front in a point to point trail 100 miler like this. This isn't just like a local
Totally.
50K. This isn't like just a silly little local race or anything. This is kind of a big thing. And so this might be my only chance. And so I was just, anytime like the dark thoughts would creep in, I haven't figured out how to stop the dark thoughts from coming, but I, anytime they would come, I would just remind myself of that and try to tell myself, like, are you doing in this mile what you need to do to be proud of your day and to like do what you want to do to have the end result? And so I said that
Totally.
to myself thousands of times probably because the dark thoughts are there, but it was enough. I did enough work, I think, ahead of time to be able to be more in the moment when the day came, and that just made all the difference. And then I was just so fit. Like, I think I was more fit than I was for no business last year. And so having that combo just made it like a really good day.
Well, it's been so cool to see you have this epic year of ultra running, and thanks for sharing a little bit about your journey with us. And Nicole, thanks for sharing a little bit about the coaching process. Both the physical side, the mental side. I feel like this has been a really cool way to unpackage. What, and I hope at the end of the year here, Lauren, you can reflect on. Wow, what an epic year.
Yeah.
Like my first Western
Well,
States, great finish. Maybe you'll get a chance to go back there again someday, but regardless, finishing it with a win at no business was awesome.
thank you. Thanks.
Lauren, you're a runner for Rabbit. Do you want to send a shout out to any sponsors or supporters, and where can people find you?
Yeah, I run on the Rabbit Elite Trail team. That's all. I don't have any other little sponsors or anything. But you can find me on Instagram. Lauren runs for grilled cheese. It's kind of long and
Epic.
silly, but it's true. Um, and yeah, I'm on there on Facebook, and Strava.
Awesome. And Nicole, you're running for Hoka. Could you tell us, do you want to shout out any sponsors? And then where can people find you on social media, and where can people find out about your coaching services?
Yeah, I say run for Hoka. I don't run for anyone else, so that's it. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook. My Instagram is Blaze, Blaes. Um, and you can find me there. You can find me on Facebook. And then as far as coaching goes, I'm open for anyone reaching out to me via like a direct message, or we do have a website too. Um, what is it? PatrickReaganRunning.com, right?
Yeah, backslash coaching. So
Yeah. And so you can find information there and send us a message there as well. So either place works for me. But yeah, I have the opening. So if anyone's interested, that'd be awesome.
okay, great. Well, thanks so much to both of you for coming on the Ultrawizard Ramble podcast. It's been awesome to have you, and looking forward to our next one.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anytime. All right.
Thanks for joining for this edition of the Ultra Wizard Ramble podcast. It was awesome to hear more about Nicole and Lauren's coaching and athlete relationship. I feel fortunate to have had a chance to see Lauren execute such a great race at the Western States 100 this summer. And from afar, watching the No Business 100 was awesome. If you want to hear more about Nicole's coaching services, I've got some links down in the bio. She's got some availability for this fall. And if you want to read more about Lauren and follow along on her running adventures, we've got links to her social media profiles below as well. We'll see you next time.